Separate.
Councilor Ruby?
Three of them. First one's a subdivision, we have to subdivide it. Then the retail's in, and then.
Welcome, everyone. Sorry for starting a little bit late, but like to call to order our regular city council meeting for Tuesday, July 17th, 2012. Would everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome. Roll call, Sylvia.
Sorry, Mayor Mays.
Here.
Council President Grant is absent. Councilor Henderson. Here. Councilor Folsom.
Here.
Councilor Butterfield.
Here.
Councilor Langer.
Here.
Councilor Clark.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia. We have 4 items on the consent agenda tonight.
I'll move consent.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, council. Presentations. We have 3 or 4. Is Carol Apple here tonight? Hi, Carol. Would you come forward, if you would? Carol is here representing Relay for Life, and Relay for Life is coming up August 4th and 5th of next month. Of course, August. And we have a proclamation that I'll read, and I believe Councilor Clark will read it at the start of Relay for Life for council as well. So in short, the American Cancer Society is the nationwide community-based volunteer health organization dedicated to eliminating cancer as a major health problem by preventing cancer, saving lives, and diminishing suffering from cancer through research, education, advocacy, and service. By these efforts, the overall age-adjusted cancer mortality rate is declining for the first time in human history and will continue to do so. Whereas people are alive today because of the knowledge we have gained as translated directly into prevention, early detection, and improved treatment, the Relay for Life is unique in this community in that it blends fundraising, cancer awareness, and prevention activities, fellowship, and support for cancer survivors. Relay for Life is about being a community that takes up the fight against cancer. There is no finish line until we find a cure. The Sherwood chapter of the American Cancer Society will hold its 8th annual Relay for Life, 8th one already, on August 6th and 7th at Sherwood High School field. Now, therefore, I, Keith Mays, on behalf of the entire Sherwood City Council, proclaim the City of Sherwood Relay for Life, a Sherwood Relay for Life community, and urge our citizens to participate in this effort to eradicate cancer as a major health problem through research, education, advocacy, and service. So I declare August 4th and 5th, 2012 as Relay for Life Days in the City of Sherwood and urge the community to support the event at the Sherwood High School. And this year there's going to be a Sherwood City team.
Woohoo.
First time.
So that's exciting, and we know you're going to have a fantastic event.
We hope so.
So
everyone come.
absolutely. Sylvia, is this one for me to give Carol? And we have a copy or... Yes, so if you haven't already signed up on a team, find one. It's a lot of fun. The 3 a.m., 4 a.m. shifts are kind of tough, but the youth in everyone makes it fun. Is Kenneth Dixon here? Okay. We hope to recognize Kenneth at our next city council meeting as he became an Eagle Scout, another outstanding achievement for one of our youth in our community. This Friday and Saturday is Robin Hood Festival, one of our signature events in our community that's been here a long time, and it's a lot of fun. So Sherwood, or July 20th to 21st, 2012, will be Sherwood Robin Hood Festival weekend. I'm going to read the proclamation on Friday, so I won't read it again today, but it's going to be a great time. And for the first year after the knighting ceremony at Stella Olson Park is I apologize, the name of
The Royal Academy.
Royal Academy.
And the children's musical is True Love's Tale.
So that'll be a lot of fun for young and old alike.
Yes.
So don't miss that. Next, a report from Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue and the Sherwood Police Department.
Change chairs. Right in here.
We'll pause while we.
Since I don't know his password. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I'd like to introduce again Chief Jim Davis, our division chief from Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue. And we're going to jump right into some slides here, but we have a very brief report on the activities of the 4th of July from 2012. We have made a habit of trying to give you an update every year, and this will be much shorter than the report we had last year, but we still think we have some very useful information for you. So, and really what this captures is a true partnership between our two organizations, between the city and Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue, and we're focusing together on a community risk reduction. That's really what this is about, and I think by the time we're done here, you'll see that.
Mayor and council, I'd also like to introduce to you the firefighters in the back of the room. Some people have identified them as police officers, and no, they're not police officers. They are firefighters. And they're here also to thank you for the support that the community and the Sherwood Police Department in working with Tualatin Valley and the successes that we had this year. Again, I'd like to thank the Sherwood Police Department and Chief Growth and all the police officers and firefighters that helped us participate to make Sherwood a very safe community this past 4th of July, and we'll demonstrate that. Sherwood is definitely leading the curve in regards to taking on and making sure that the communities are kept safe during the 4th of July. With the actions that they and the support that they've given us this past year. We've had numerous articles this year. I'm sure some of you will recall an article that appeared in the Oregonian, primarily around the Portland Fire Bureau, but also Chief Growth was also identified in that article as well, and Sherwood specifically in regards to leading the region in regards to making sure that the communities are kept safe. In doing this, we performed numerous outreaches through educational campaigns, TV, print, social media, with the large article in the Oregonian, handouts that were distributed at the fireworks booth, neighborhood visits by our firefighters, as well as our deputy fire marshals, and attending block parties, just making sure and encouraging people to keep them safe. And then, of course, as always, our deputy fire marshal is doing ride-alongs with the law enforcement through the communities. This year, Tualatin Valley, along with Sherwood, we had deputy fire marshals riding with police officers in Tigard, Beaverton, and Washington County this year also participated. The message that we wanted to get out is use only safe and sane fireworks from licensed outlets. Sherwood, of course, has a zero tolerance when it comes to illegal fireworks, and not only will they be seized, but they'll also be cited if found with illegal fireworks. But the proactive side of things is the fact that the Sherwood Police Department, along with Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue, has a diversion program which people participated in last year to get their fines reduced.
The diversion program was its inaugural season last year, 2011, continuing it this year. It was very successful last year, and I might add that we are only one of just a few communities that I'm aware of in the state that offer a fireworks diversion program. So again, the point is to educate and communicate to folks and try to prevent as much as we can. This is the accountability portion. We just have 2 years up there for comparison. And you can see this year, 2012, the photo on my right on the screen, that's all the illegal fireworks that were seized, and there were 9 citations issued. So every one of those 9 citations will be offered the diversion program, assuming that they're not a repeat offender that the court isn't aware of. But we've not had any repeat offenders, so I don't believe that we have any this year. But anyway, so they will be eligible for the diversion program as well.
We have some data from last year in 2011, basically showing from June 23rd to July 5th, from the time the fireworks go on sale to the time of fireworks sales stopping and the setting off of the fireworks. In 2011, Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue responded to 14 fireworks-related incidents with property damage in excess of $271,300 in damage. That was a majority that was at a residential structure fire in which there were three vehicles as well as the residence that was destroyed. In Sherwood, last year we had 25,100, and that was related to a single incident that we had at a residential structure with improper disposal of fireworks next to the structure. In 2012, data is very good, again, from June 23rd to July 5th. District-wide, the firefighters only responded to 5 fireworks-related fire incidents for fire. And in Sherwood, we had 0 calls, which is excellent. Now, we also have to make some assumptions to go along with that, and that's that we had a very wet June, one of the wettest Junes in record, leading up to the 4th of July, even though the 4th of July was a very beautiful day. But also it was midweek, and we assume too that more people are going to Safe and Sane fireworks displays, which kept it safe as well. But Sherwood has done a great job with their campaign, with their education, and letting people know that about the zero tolerance. And I firmly believe that has to do a lot with why you're seeing a $0 loss in the city of Sherwood.
So what we want to do is, just exactly as it says, why do we do this? There's lots of reasons, but there's a couple of specific case examples we want to share with you this year. I'll let Chief Davis talk about the first one.
Unfortunately, we did have a fairly serious illegal fireworks injury that took place up in the Rock Creek area. The picture on the right is the mortar, what it looks like. The aftermath, this is the piece that blew off, and the person, while holding the illegal fireworks in his hand, severely injuring his hand and losing a few fingers off of his hand, along with burns while he held this illegal fireworks.
And then I imagine most everybody's had an opportunity to read the other scenario that we had in Sherwood, and so again, why do we do this? Because we want to keep people safe, and fireworks do not belong in the hands of 4-year-olds. Period. And everybody makes mistakes, but our hope in this is that we learn and we change behavior. So that's really what it's about.
So with that, we'll leave you with just a statement from Jeremy Foster, our Deputy Fire Marshal, which is Jeremy has ridden with the Sherwood Police Department the last 3 years. And I don't need to read this to you. It's self-explanatory. But we are making a success in the program as we move forward. Thank you very much.
And we certainly entertain any questions if there might be.
First, thank you very much for continuing strengthening partnership between both agencies. Public safety is critically important and valued by everyone in our town, businesses and families. Great report to see the successes that we're experiencing in our community. Questions? Great. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
If I would turn the mic on, that would have helped. But my apologies. Next on our agenda is citizen comment. Anyone wishing to address council on any issue that is not on our agenda tonight. You can fill out a form in advance or after you talk. Have one completed. R clause. Welcome.
Robert James Claus, 2221 Southwest Pacific Highway. Recently, in trying to sell a subdivision we are proposing on Cedar Brook Way, we found out that your staff trespassed, taking photographs, and as it now appears, made substantial misstatements to Metro. Those are documented. You can talk to Dan Cooper. I'm recalling now for the trespass, which is illegal, and your highway and your high manual says that, your manual, I want either Michelle Miller terminated or Julia Hyden. That is physical trespass on the property of another. We were withheld from that meeting. It is an established fact. They were required to involve stakeholders. They did not. And ODOT has confirmed that trespass. Now, what makes that so serious is you drew the path of Cedar Brook Way through those lots. Jane Hart was a little obstreperous with me when I objected to it, but I've received the proper apology letter from her due to Miss Miller's misinformation. Now, I understand that there's a thin line between zoning, taking, and stealing. But when you start with holding meetings, having people trespass at your will, and I will expect a police report from Ms. Groth on this because I have verified with the engineers, they were instructed by the city to trespass, and I understand Mr. Pismer then instructed them to turn the materials over to him. Now, what you need to understand is it's probably very funny in a lot of your books. It's not funny in my book. When you start trying to steal somebody's property by telling another agency you have a right to enter that property when you don't, there isn't a thin line to what you're doing in stealing. You're stealing. You've already affected the value of those properties. Now, I'm going to meet with some city officials, and I'm sure it'll straighten out. But I'm telling you now, this thing of giving away zoning in the city is a simple fact. We all know that. This thing of where you target somebody's property and won't let it develop, we know that. But during this time period, I don't want your people trespassing on property you don't own for reasons to value that property. Now, if that's hard for you to understand, it won't be hard to understand with the police report. Now, I'm assured from Metro that that trespass of that path will not occur again. And here's what I'd make to you as an advice. Once you get away in this town because of your legal advice, you won't get away when Metro has a federal grant. Because that grant of $5.1 million you put at risk by lying, trespassing, and trying to steal. The grant is not allowed in those circumstances. So I'm just hoping that at some point we move away from this Oregon attitude that everything, if you don't like somebody, belongs to you. And stealing and trespassing is okay, you stop it. I think it's offensive, I think it's disgusting, and most of all, you got caught by a very competent attorney. And I'm sure it won't happen again, but I'm sure that won't stop you again.
Anyone else like to address council on any item not on the agenda? Great. We'll move on to public hearings. We have 3 tonight. First is ordinance 2012-008, amending multiple sections of the zoning and community development code relating to landscaping, off-street parking, and loading requirements. We've already opened and closed the public hearing on this ordinance, and I think this will go rather quickly, I anticipate. Michelle?
Thank you. So as you have in front of you this evening, we've been before council on June 5th and also June 19th. And council had some issues for staff to investigate with respect to Metro concerning the garage parking and also carpool. Staff presented that information to you at the last hearing and incorporated those changes into the legislation that you have before you this evening in Exhibit A. I highlighted all those changes for you on the various pages, as well as the issue concerning street trees. I took the provision that excluded street trees from the parking area counting toward the tree requirement and inserted it in another area where it was to be counted for the amount of trees. So if anyone has any questions,
Thank you for doing that. It looks great. My only question, the only question I have for council, if on page 36 of the packet, page 8 of the clean copy, highlighted, you adjusted garages aren't counted towards parking, which is great, with the exception if 3 or more spaces are not individually enclosed, with the example being underground or multi-level parking structures, which is great. Council, is 3 a good number, or should it be 4 or 5? Is there any concern? By having the example, it might very well be just fine as is, but
I personally think it's fine the way it is.
okay. I see some nodding of heads. Any other comment from council for Michelle or on the proposed ordinance? Discussion? I think people are generally quite pleased with your work and getting Metro to agree with our position on this. I greatly appreciate your efforts.
Sure, thank you.
With that, I move we read, caption, and adopt ordinance 2012-008.
Second.
Sylvia?
Ordinance 2012-008, an ordinance amending multiple sections of the zoning and community development code relating to landscape, off-street parking, and loading requirements. Counselor Clark?
Aye.
Counselor Langer?
Aye.
Counselor Butterfield?
Aye.
Counselor Folsom?
Aye.
Counselor Henderson?
Aye.
Council President Grant is absent. Mayor Mays?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, council. Next, we have two more ordinances. We have a good crowd, so if you'll indulge me, I'd like to know who is here for sign code. Great. And who is here for the residential development? Great. Randy, if you were, I'm going to stick with the order so we can hear from the larger group tonight. Sylvia, you read into the record for ordinance 2012-009.
The Sherwood City Council will hold a public hearing this evening on ordinance 2012-009, an ordinance amending the sign code section of the Sherwood Zoning and Community Development Code, section 16.102. The purpose of the hearing is to allow the public an opportunity to present testimony on the above said item. The order of business the council will follow is to hear a staff report, receive correspondence, receive public testimony, receive additional staff comments, and then questions from the council. The hearing will then be closed and no further testimony will be received. If you wish to speak, please fill out the testimony form and submit it to the city recorder. The mayor will recognize those persons wishing to speak, and any questions should be addressed through the mayor. When you come to the microphone, please state your name and address for the record. Please state your name and address, as this hearing will be recorded. And please limit your testimony to 4 minutes.
Thank you, Sylvia. Welcome, Brad. Put him. You bet. Not a problem.
I'm ready when you're ready, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Brad, welcome.
Good evening, sir. Councilors, Mr. Mayor. Brad Kilby, Senior Planner with the City of Sherwood. Tonight I'm going to talk to you about our Plan Amendment 1107 as it pertains to the sign code.
Everyone hear Brad? Is your mic on, Brad?
It is on.
Okay, just
I'll-
bring it right close and.
I'll bring it closer. Haven't done that since I was with Aerosmith. The project objectives at the outset of this proposal was to make sure that the code was clear, easy to enforce, as content neutral, and regulates sign based on time, place, and manner. And as many of you have known, we've had a couple work sessions with you on signs. And specifically, this was an effort to look at our temporary portable and banner sign regulations within the city of Sherwood because they were very confusing. As a planner with 15 years of experience trying to administer this as I came into the city a year ago, there were, if this, then this, if this, then this, and it gets taken around to different sections of the code. And so I was charged with an effort to come in and try and clean it up. The proposed amendments before you tonight would separate the sign code into two separate chapters. There would be a permanent signs chapter under 16100, and then temporary portable and banner signs would be moved to chapter 16102. The proposed amendments under chapter 16100 would consolidate all of the definitions as they pertain to signs within that single chapter, and we added some definitions for mural signs, snipe signs, and some other signs. It would remove the content-related provisions and those provisions related to off-premise signs based on our the legal counsel's recommendation. And I have two other amendments that we discussed with them here recently that we would want to propose to you this evening as well. And then within the permanent sign code chapter, we also added a provision that would allow an additional projecting sign that would be oriented to the public. So this is a sign that would be hung beneath an awning. There are standards that are put in place, 6 square feet, and I call it the Fat Milo's amendment because they had come in and approached us about hanging an awning with a sign beneath it. And at that time, we didn't have anything in our code that would have allowed it. But we recognize that there are businesses that do benefit from that type of signage and proposed it as part of this. Chapter 16102 would be temporary portable and banner signs. The temporary signs for the purposes of our discussion tonight would be the signs that you would see typical of the commercial real estate signs. We don't regulate content, so this sign could have anything on it. Portable signs are signs that you would typically see that are the civic functions, sign up for volleyball, basketball, football, the political sign, campaign signs that I think many of you might be putting up this year. And of course, banner signs, which go without saying, and those are typically not rigid in nature, and they're signs that are placed currently in our existing code only on buildings. So the existing language treats temporary and portable signs the same. As I just mentioned, under 16102, we would propose to separate those two classifications. Our existing code exempts signs from permitting Tuesdays and Thursdays through Sundays. The problem we have with that is you have a sign code that's on temporary signs, portable signs, and banner signs that's enforced 2 days out of the week, which creates an enforcement nightmare for our lone code enforcement officer that only spends half of his time doing code enforcement, the other half doing evidence. It's not clear how many signs are permitted on private property. Basically, the code currently says that you can have signs on private property. They're limited to 8 square feet in size. And it regulates the size of a banner sign in combination with wall signs. So essentially, the existing code says that if you have a wall sign on your building and you want to come in and put a banner sign in for a special event, if you're already at the maximum for your wall sign percentage, then you can't have that temporary sign. And we recognize that as a potential problem and propose that banner signs be regulated separately because they're temporary in nature, and then they would be permitted. And it prohibits A-frame and banner signs in all residential and industrial districts. The asterisk here is that it says that it prohibits A-frame and banner signs in all residential districts, but then it goes on to say that they are allowed in the medium density and high density residential zones. So we needed to clean that up. So the PC recommendation was to eliminate, differentiate between temporary and portable signs, eliminate Tuesday and Thursday through Sunday exemptions, allow signs in the right-of-way and banner signs only with a permit. Signs located on private property outside of the right-of-way would not require a permit, so if it's on private property, would not require a permit, provided they meet the allowed amount of signage. And then it would require an owner's permission for sign to be placed on private property or the adjacent owner's permission when it's placed within the right-of-way. So temporary signs then, for the sake of this discussion, are signs that are firmly affixed to a temporary structure, like a stake and H-frame, or in our case, A-frame signs in Old Town. And the characteristics include signs that are constructed of rigid materials, and they're subject to maximum height and area requirements. I think it's 4 feet in height and 6 square feet, the Planning Commission's recommendation. And then we move to temporary signs, which are the signs that you see for typically on the commercial for lease signs. These are 2 examples here in Sherwood. The temporary signs under the code would be limited to, under the proposal from the Planning Commission, would be limited to 8.5 feet high by 4 feet, giving them a total sign face of 32 square feet per side. With respect to portable signs are small movable signs that are not attached to a building or any other permanent structure. Like I had mentioned before, there's currently no limit, provided that they do not exceed 8 square feet per sign face. And then finally, that we require permits if they're placed in the right-of-way, and you can come in and get 10 signs for a 2-week, 6 or 8 week period, and it's the cost of that permit ranges from $50 to $150. The problem we see with that as staff is the majority of the people that come in and get these permits are people that are nonprofits that actually come in and ask the city for the permit, but there are businesses throughout that see it as a cost of doing business and just hope that their sign's not going to be picked up on any other day, and they'll just go out and put and plaster signs throughout the city, regardless of the number, without getting a permit. And then temporary and portable signs oftentimes will be left in the right-of-way as litter because, again, they see it as a cost of doing business. Here's a couple examples of portable signs here in the city. Some of these have been pulled because they were taken last, well, I guess in probably January. Finally, banner signs. Signs would be made of lightweight fabric or non-rigid material supported by 2 or more points, and the Planning Commission recommendation is that they be allowed to be hung from a building, fence, or wall. Currently, we have a couple instances on some churches and daycares and some other locations where they are already on fences, and we even have some that are on walls. So they're proposed to be allowed in all zones, but not located specifically on a single-family residence. So they would be allowed, say, on a non-residential use within a residential neighborhood, a church that's placed there through a conditional use. And the current proposal before you from the Planning Commission is that they would allow 6 instances in any calendar year for 30 days at a time. And they would be requiring permits. Here's some examples of signs in Sherwood. I think this is key because the Les Schwab on the left, it's not on the building, fence, or wall. It's just held up by 2 stakes. The Puppy Playhouse is not truly a freestanding sign. It's a banner sign that's placed on a temporary PVC structure. And then the Woodhaven garage sale sign, under the current proposal, anybody that comes in and gets a special event permit, their signage is treated independent of the sign code and would be allowed through that special event permit because we know what the duration of that time period is going to be. There was a question about wall sign and murals. The courts have maintained that murals are, in fact, wall signs or can be treated as wall signs. There are a couple jurisdictions, Los Angeles, Philadelphia, and now recently Portland, that have actually implemented a commission. They call it an arts commission, and so they require that folks come in and say, I want to put a mural on the side of my building, they might require a perpetual easement for the length of the time that that sign is proposed to be up there. They have to maintain it. It has to be accepted or approved by an arts commission or a city or a council in the case of Philadelphia. Within the proposal before you, we added a definition for a mural that would basically require that a mural be allowed only when it's commissioned and or approved by the city council via resolution. And the wall sign standards would remain the same. It's 20% of the building face with a minimum of 30 square feet or up to a maximum of 250 square feet. When we wrote the code, we were looking for a couple instances where we would have had a 250 square foot sign. The only one we found was Captain Ron's, which is no longer there. Other signs that are regulated again, so you have the over the right-of-way banner signs, even though that they're hung vertically as opposed to across the street, they are banner signs that are over our pedestrian right-of-way out here. Those could be permitted, again, through a special event permit. Balloons are currently not permitted, but folks use them. And then the flag signs could be permitted, provided they meet the standards for a portable sign. And then the Planning Commission's recommendation is to prohibit inflatable signs. You have, I assume, received, and a letter from Mr. Claus. It was actually a email last week that you received about a sign line, which is a brochure that the Claus family puts out under their organization. That would go down as Exhibit D to the packet tonight. You also should have received yesterday, and I have them here for if you did not receive or read them, a letter from Daryl Winan of the Portland Metro Association of Realtors, which would go in as Exhibit E to your packet. And then finally, I received an email from the Sherwood Chamber of Commerce last Friday that we met with the chamber, I think it was early last week, and we asked them to take a look at this and provide any input from their businesses. I think Nancy actually went out to some of the businesses and talked to them and asked them questions. This is, I suspect she will be coming up to testify tonight, but this is an email from her that would go into your packets as Exhibit F. You also, within your packet, received some alternative language that is proposed by staff based on our earlier discussions with you in your work session on signs. And that is, if I can find it. I'm sorry? Begins on page 155. I wanted to start off by saying that we start with talking about banner signs within the context of amending banner signs, and I want to say, as they are attached to wall signs, we are not asking that or proposing that you eliminate the ability to use a banner sign. What we're trying to say is that if you are going to use a banner sign as a permanent sign, that we would prefer that you just didn't put a wood trim sign around it, that you would actually invest in the cost of putting a permanent sign up there as opposed to a banner sign that's just encased in a small wood frame. So if you want to go down, or if you've had a chance to review this in your packet, I'd be happy to discuss any of these proposed amendments. I would also add that we worked with the city's legal counsel and determined that there were some changes that might be warranted for the purpose of clarifying the meaning of the provision or to ensure that it aligned with the intent of the provision. And those can be found on page 141 of your packet in the clean version, Exhibit A2. And that is section 16.100.010 E4. And the proposal is that I'll just read the provision and then I'll read to you what the proposed language would be. The existing language states that a sign that is 45 feet tall or less and that is 300 square feet or less in size is exempt from the requirement to come into compliance within 5 years and may remain until structurally altered, relocated, or replaced, or B, until such time as the property on which it is located goes through a major redevelopment as determined by the commission as part of a Type 4 land use application. We would propose that B be amended to read, until such time as the property on which it is located is developed or redeveloped pursuant to a Type 4 land use application. And what this does is it takes out the Planning Commission's, for lack of a better word, ability to subjectively state that it's not a major redevelopment. This is just, if you're subject to a Type 4 land use application, then you're required to bring your sign into compliance if it wasn't in compliance prior. The second one is on the next page, 142, and it pertains to electronic message signs, and that is in the same chapter under E, non-conforming signs. I'm sorry, not E, non-conforming signs. I think I have this out of place. Oh, yeah, I do. So it's actually page 4 of 16 for me and page 142 for you, number 7. And the provision reads, electronic message signs consistent with 16100.020 E and F. Electronic message signs may not change more than once every 30 seconds. In addition, the change may not involve movement or flashing. Electronic message signs are limited to no more than 35% of the total allowable sign area per sign face. And the proposed language before you should say that, starting with electronic message in the third sentence, electronic message signs are limited to no more than 35% of the total area per sign face. And where this comes in, we'll just use wall signs as an example. If somebody had the ability to put a 250 square foot wall sign on their building, and this limits it to 35% of that 250 square feet, they could propose a sign that is only 100 square feet as opposed to the 250 square feet. And we're just asking that the electronic portion of that be limited to 35% of the actual signage that is proposed. We think that that was the intent of the legislation initially, and we would ask that you'd make that change to clarify. You have in your packets Exhibit A1, which is the track changes version, and A2, which is the clean version of the Planning Commission recommendation. This concludes staff's report. If you have additional questions, we would entertain those questions and open to discussing any further issues on this.
Thanks, Brad. Not an easy bit of work. Certainly appreciate the hard work that staff has done, Planning Commission, and those in the community that have been engaged in this work. With your alternative language points, there's concern that Tom mentioned that A-frame signs, the standard A-frame signs are a little bit different than what is in the language. Did you look into that more?
We did. So I went out and measured some of the signs that are out in Old Town and a couple up at the other part of town up Sherwood Boulevard. I was out posting for our appeal next week, and I stopped and measured some signs. And typically, they range in 4 feet in height. That's the max height of the signs that I was measuring for the A-frame signs, up to 32 inches in width. In most cases, it was between 25 and a half, but I did measure one that was 32 inches. And I think that those are a characteristic of what you see with the handles on them, which I would consider a typical A-frame sign. And so we would propose in our language that you amend it to reflect actually what's out there so that we're not creating a lot of non-conforming signs. And I think we're looking at 4 feet in height with a total sign area of 7 square feet.
Yeah, that's correct. And you know, obviously, this alternative language was based on information that we heard from the work sessions with council. It's been out there for a while, so we made sure that we went out and talked to some of the people that have more familiarity with this. And this was one of the comments that they made, is that the typical A-frame sign is usually 4 feet or slightly less, and 7 square feet. So we want to make sure that we're not having custom signs built if the typical A-frame sign meets that standard. And so that's something that we think makes just a lot of sense in order to accomplish that.
And so how do you suggest doing that? Amending this language, amending a different section?
Well, there were a couple of things that came up, and so Brad has, if you take a look at the proposed language, it says portable signs in all zones limited 4 feet in height with a sign facing larger than 6 feet. We also were hearing feedback that that's great for A-frames, but may not necessarily be great for a campaign sign, because that's a fairly large campaign sign, your typical campaign sign or other portable sign. Not picking on campaigns, but they're usually about 18 by 24, which is roughly 3 square feet. So one thing that we took a look at was actually potentially changing the definitions, which would be on page
143 of the clean copy.
143, in order to define a size for a portable A-frame size sign there as 4 feet in height and 7 square feet, and then a regular portable sign being 18 by 24 or 3 square feet. So that way there would be a differentiation between an A-frame sign, which has one set of standards, and a regular portable sign. And if you did that, then you would strike the text in
the alternative language, or the temporary sign 16102.030A1 about size. Okay. Great.
Mr. May, it's 040A1. Should be, I think.
Okay.
I have 2 other changes. On
Okay.
page 120, let's go to 151, the clean copy. I think it's easier to work in. Section 16.102.040A, the cross-reference should be changed to 16.100.I.13 and 14. It currently references 15, which is not correct. And on that same page, 16.100.040A1 would be deleted, and the remaining regulations would be renumbered.
Tell me again, I apologize, Brad, which one
So
would be
if
deleted?
you go to page 151,
Yep.
section 16.102.040A,
A.
the cross-section reference, or the
Got that.
cross-reference should be 13 and 14 as opposed to 15.
Right.
And then 16.100.040A1 would be deleted, and then the remaining regulations would be renumbered.
Okay. I mean, one benefit of what you're suggesting with the alternative language is eliminating the fees.
And that would be something that we would discuss once you're comfortable with the language. We would eliminate the fees. Under our alternative language, and what we heard with you at the council work session is that we just wouldn't allow portable signs in the right-of-way at all. So there wouldn't be a need for a permit. So we also, in hearing that and understanding the operation of the way that people typically will operate with portable signs like garage sale signs and things, we proposed an exemption for Thursday, Friday, Saturday based on our discussion as well. So on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I think it's Friday from 6 a.m. in the morning till Sunday night at 6 p.m., there just would not be any enforcement on portable signs placed within the right-of-way. But the rest of the time, signs wouldn't be allowed in the right-of-way. If we don't have signs in the right-of-way, then we wouldn't need a permit process.
And
But
generally,
we-
the right-of-way in residential areas is behind the sidewalk or behind the street tree.
It's typically 1 foot behind a sidewalk, or in a location where it might be an older subdivision. You can look to your right or left and look for the nearest utility pole or some type of phone, and it's about 6 inches behind that. That's typically where your right-of-way ends.
Certainly eliminating fees. I made a comment after I read the packet to Tom that one thing we might have missed, and I think you might have addressed it, is the value of what you're suggesting is allowing the nonprofits to put those signs out without a fee, and the best places to put those is on IP, institutional public uses, parks, city property, school district property, but it doesn't really touch upon that in here.
No, and I think if the city, because most of the IP zoned properties are owned by the cities or schools, that if they establish policies as to what they would allow on their property, that'd probably be the best case. I'm not sure that it's really something you'd want to put into the code.
But there's IP uses that are government, and there's IP uses that are churches.
Correct.
So something to chew on. Other questions from council before we have public comment? Any other feedback that you've heard, Tom?
Yeah, just a couple of things, and I'll address your IP question here in just a second. But one that we heard definitely as we were looking through the alternative languages, changing from 4 portable signs on residentially zoned lots to 2 portable signs. The general consensus was 2 signs was too low. That 4 signs seemed to be more appropriate to what has been happening in the city, and especially with changes in the other portable signs in regards to permits and other things that people felt fairly strongly that 4 signs was probably more appropriate rather than changing that to 2. So that was something that maybe keeping the planning commission proposed language rather than the alternative language, I think would be something that was heard. You mentioned IP zones. One thing right now, the way that the code is proposed is it's for all zones, you have 1 portable sign per business. And so if you're, I guess, a school, I guess you're 1 business on your property. So one thing that we're taking a look at is that doesn't seem reasonable, especially if school districts and cities and others can come up with policies regarding how to place those. So we did take a look at modifying section 16-102-040A.2 portable sign regulations, and basically just adding to that planning commission recommendation to say, except that properties over an acre in size that are developed with an approved non-residential use may replace 1 portable sign every 50 feet for the length of the site frontage along a public street. That would give them the ability to put 1 every 50 feet like other businesses are allowed to do. As well as that we would also probably have to modify section 16-120-040A3 portable sign regulations to add zones except the institutional and public IP zone, because that's where it said no more than 1 portable sign per business is allowed in all other zones. So they would be limited to 1 sign in any institutional and public zone. We also would also take a look at adding section 160-120-040A, and then the last section to say property zone in institutional and public may place 1 portable sign meeting the dimensional standards of subsection 1 above every 50 feet for the length of the site frontage along the public street. So again, those are all the same thing. I'm just basically trying to get to the point of if you're in an institutional or public property and you only have 1 sign that's allowed, where you put it, and which nonprofit are you going to support for a period of time, and that doesn't seem to be very, very reasonable. So,
Okay. Absolutely.
Tom, could you, I didn't hear the first part, or I didn't retain the first part of your first statement, because I think I was chewing on the IP idea, where 2 was not enough and 4 was,
Yeah, this is in regards, the planning commission recommended for portable signs. Portable signs in all zones are limited to 4, no more than 4 portable signs are allowed on any residentially zoned lot. And so the alternative language suggested going to no more than 2 portable signs are allowed on any residentially zoned lot. And what we have heard is that people feel that 2 is
not enough?
not enough, yeah.
In a residentially zoned lot where somebody lives in a house?
Correct.
2 signs weren't enough?
That's what we've heard.
And what was the mission of this?
So the planning commission recommendation was 4. We proposed the alternative language based on feedback that we heard at y'all's work session, specific to visual clutter. And so we proposed language that would reduce that to 2. And what we're saying is when we took this out to talk to a few folks, that we heard back that 2 is not enough on a residentially zoned property, because if you have multiple measures going on at any one election and you have candidates, you may want to have 4 signs. The size of the sign is still limited,
Okay.
but they could have up to 4 signs on the property.
And currently they could do that 6 times a year based on their recommendation?
No, portable signs would be allowed anytime, as often, when they're. anytime.
Never mind.
On private property.
Non-permitted, yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions for Brad? So in a second, we'll open up to public testimony. Generally, I don't know which category people are interested in, but those that are in favor of having actual standards for the A-frame signs that meet industry manufactured standards, is just a show of hands. I think that's a good idea. I apologize. Staff is suggesting that that they define A-frame signs to meet the type of A-frame signs that are made on a regular basis, that are and sold on a regular basis, and so you're not having to make a custom smaller sign than what the original staff language said. So, is that a good idea? I see a lot of nodding of heads, no hands, but great. So we'll have some folks testify as well, and then just as general feedback on the portable sign on residential property of allowing 2 or 4. Mind if I ask favor or something other? 2, 4. Okay, just straw poll. Just thank you for indulging my question. For those not in attendance or watching on TV, there were more hands, like 10-to-1 hands up for 4 portable signs in residential versus 2, and a lot of head nods on having A-frame signs standards actually meeting the standard that they're made, which is great. So now we'll let Brad kind of gather his.
Can I leave this here?
Sure. And let folks give testimony. First is R. Claus. Welcome.
Robert James Claus, 22211 Southwest Pacific Highway. I'm asking for the 14-day continuous, keep the record open, because we have a code enforcement file request in, and it will not be available until Thursday at the earliest and possible later, and it gives you a record of your code enforcement. First, I want to thank Mr. Kilby, because this is an amendment of an earlier code, and I had left the code that way because it has elements of prior restraint, which went to the competency of Barry Elser and Hammond, in particular, Mr. Cream. I had been using and leaving that there because I felt if I had to litigate, I needed that. It is wonderful that you have a document that confirms that amendment that Mr. Cream worked on, which allowed the billboards, was prior restraint. and it's in your report. Secondarily, I must say I'm very grateful to Zoe Monahan in the fact that one of the problems you will face, and you will face it at LUBA because this is going to go to LUBA if you pass it, and it'll go to LUBA if you try to enforce it. It really doesn't matter. Is you have an enforcement problem and you can't even produce your permits. Now that means you've got a non-conforming sign and an illegal sign. Luckily, I've had some experience with that, and let me tell you, when you try to say something is non-conforming legal and then it's going to become non-conforming illegal and you're going to take it without compensation, the federal courts don't look on that very favorably. But more than that, when you admit that half of the signs you have up don't have permits, you've admitted a 14th Amendment violation. I thank your staff. I am surprised. We had the same problem in San Diego, but we had to do it by summary judgment. We didn't do it by our own volition, I'll guarantee you, because that puts you in a very difficult place in court. You're automatically into a Title 42 U.S.C. 1983-1988 decision. Let me tell you that over half the signs in this sound, it appear to be illegal. Secondarily, you have internally conflicting definitions, and it is a permissive code, and by law on permissive codes, you must take the most restrictive definition. It is appalling, utterly appalling, when a city has an abandoned sign that is not maintained, that is illegal per se on two parts of your own code, and you may, it's must take it down in 90 days. You have not even been able to take down the Robin Hood Theater sign. Now, don't try to tell me that's a historic sign, because what was a historic sign on the Robin Hood Theater, Mr. Schultz and Mr. Patterson wrecked. It's delightful. This is going to be a long litigation. It's probably going to end up in federal court because I'm going to be looking for attorney's fees and damages. You finally stumbled into an area that I know a little bit about, having had one of my cases at the Supreme Court of the United States and commented on fairly favorably, but I will admit that Rehnquist was a fellow Stanford alumni, so he's probably prejudiced. And I've had a number of federal courts. This code is unenforceable as written, and your lawyers know it. You've admitted that. Sylvia loves that competence realist. Find something she said the city can find. Bring it back to me. We will. This is obviously not going to end here. It's a matter that I don't like being called names, and it's another. Now, in the last 20 seconds, Mr. Langer, I believe you have both a potential and actual conflict of interest, and what we have obtained from the Ethics Committee, you have not divulged the fact that your family is the leaseholder on the land on Sherwood Plaza, which specifically received exemptions no one else got. I hope you don't vote on this, you leave now. Sylvia, this has all been documented. We want it for the record, so as we move to LUBA, we have the base we need to begin the fight here about this. So, thank you.
Great. Next, Charles Jason? Jacob, I apologize. Welcome, Charles.
Good evening. My name is Charles Jago. I'm representing St. Paul Lutheran Church on Cedar View Way. I've been working with Brad a little bit on some of the sign code that relates to banners. St. Paul has used banners frequently to communicate community available events. We've got a huge summer camp going on over there that is pretty well attended, and we depend on temporary signs for a fair amount of publicity to let the community know that this type of event is being held. Unfortunately, we find ourselves in a right-of-way landlocked zone, and the way the sign code is currently constructed, we would not be able to display banner signs anywhere near the road where people would be able to see them as they drive or walk by. And I've documented that in the packet that I've sent out. So
Plus, it doesn't
without,
help that the county put all the landscaping all the way across the front of your property.
yeah, with some creative cutting that the maintenance crew does, they keep the signs visible. But I'm proposing just a small amendment. The exact wording I'll read, but I'm certainly open to other modifications of the wording. But essentially, we're requesting the addition to the temporary sign code sections 1610220A and 1610250B, saying if the city or county right-of-way extends more than 50 feet beyond the outermost point of the road, paving, curb, or sidewalk, the owner of the lot adjacent to the right-of-way may display a banner or other temporary sign 10 feet or more from the outermost sidewalk, curb, or paving if a permanent display sign is already allowed at that location. That's essentially it. This provision, we think, doesn't favor any one entity. It just is a recognition that in some cases, like St. Paul Church, Roy Rogers took a different route than it did 100 years ago, and we got left out a little bit of ways from the public. So we'd appreciate it if we would be able to continue to advertise using our banner signs as we have done in the past. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Daryl? Welcome, Daryl.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor, councilors. My name is Daryl Wynand. I'm the Governmental Affairs Specialist with the Portland Metropolitan Association of Realtors, and I thank you for this opportunity to testify this evening. Representing the more than 5,700 members of our association, I come before you this evening for the following purposes. One, to briefly review the way in which realtors use signs within your community to market homes of your citizens. To briefly touch upon realtors' issues of concerns with respect to the draft language and the alternate language before you this evening. And to urge council's support of PMAR's recommendations with respect to same. But first, I would be remiss to not commend Sherwood for the accessibility of its staff members, specifically Brad Kilby. He has been a great assistance to us, keeping us up to date on everything that's coming before you and before the work sessions and Planning Commission, and thank you, Brad. I appreciate that.
Excellent.
Every day, I'll iterate some of the points in my letter that you received yesterday, but every day in Sherwood, realtors are helping citizens to sell property. In 2010, you could see that there were $86 million worth of property that they were involved in. In 2011, it was $79 million, and year-to-date 2012, we're looking at $93.8 million that they have been involved in the transactions. One of the key tools that realtors are using is a sign. Realtors place the sign on the property to communicate with potential buyers. They use the signs to assist people in finding homes within your community that are for sale. And their clients, your citizens and your constituents, want them to use signs and ask them to use signs to market their homes, as I assume will you when your homes are up for sale. One sign that is used most frequently is the A-frame sign, A-board, or the sandwich board sign. In the industry, these signs are typically referred to as open house signs and are simply a four-sided sign with verbiage on two sides. And these are portable, temporary signs. And they advise the public that not only is the house available for purchase, but it's available for viewing immediately during specific hours. Open houses are commonly held for a limited period of time on weekends and possibly on Tuesdays for what is referred to in the industry as broker opens. Our specific comments with respect to the sign regulation revisions and alternate language are as follows. Section 16102.040A1. PMAR supports the proposed language for a portable sign to be limited to 4 square feet with a sign face no larger than 6 or 7, as was amended by staff moments ago. PMAR opposes the alternate language stipulating the portable signs in all zones are limited to 2 feet in height. Frankly, we don't believe that this would accommodate most of the signs that are out there in the industry. They vary from range. They range from 24-inch to 36-inch in height. Some may be even larger. So the amendment that staff proposed with respect to the 4 feet and the 7 square feet, that would be acceptable. Section 16-102-040A2, the limiting of signs on private property is a concern for PMAR only in that there needs to be sufficient allowance for the marketing of the properties in your city. However, limiting the number of signs on private property will not burden the real estate industry because frankly, if your home is for sale, it's going to take precedent over any other sign. Section 16-102-040A4, PMAR opposes the proposed language disallowing the use of portable signs within the public right-of-way except by permit. And we do support the alternate language to allow the use of temporary portable signs. Clarification, we hope that includes A-frame signs as well within the public right-of-way from Friday through Sunday at 6 p.m. Limiting by time, certainly there's no need for permitting in that regard.
You have another point, I think.
Thank you, I do. Section 16-102-040A5 and 5A. PMAR opposes and supports portions of each of the proposed and the alternate language. We recommend that this section reads as I sent to you, that portable signs shall also meet the following standards. An individual or entity wishing to place a portable sign off-site in front of another property must make a good faith effort to contact the property owner. And this is what my members do right now. They go to that home and they see whether the person is there and leave a business card. It's not always going to be possible to reach that homeowner. They're going to be vacationing, taking off to the beach. It's just not possible to have that written permission and getting in advance. So they do leave business cards. And then continue, if not available, leave a message in writing that includes the individual's contact information, a business card, and a description of the effort made to contact the owner. I have further comments, but I believe that you've read those. But I do ask that you support PMAR's recommendations for these amendments, and I thank you for the opportunity to present these comments, and I'm available for any questions.
Great. Thank you very much, Daryl.
Thank you.
Nancy Bruton? Welcome.
Hello. I'm on. Usually it's off. Nancy Bruton, 22566 Southwest Washington Street, number 101. Good evening, council, staff, and community. I'm Nancy Bruton, Executive Director for the Sherwood Chamber of Commerce, here to address several things on behalf of the Sherwood business community that our membership represents regarding the proposed amendments of the sign code. Would first like to thank the City of Sherwood staff for their diligence in keeping the Chamber Community Affairs Committee informed in this and involved in this tedious process. The business community's perspective is that in order to function at our full potential as a dynamic and competitive retail marketplace, that our businesses need the tools to create, communicate, support, and reinforce their brands and our community brand. Signage is an economic tool that serves as a marketing function, supporting consumers by differentiating from companies and services, creating public awareness, a community sense of place, and impacting our standard of living. I encourage council to recognize the limitless potential that signs offer our businesses, some feedback of which we have freely shared with the city staff, but I wanted to draw attention to today, include, one, the businesses want to use quality signage to advertise their business and ensure a positive reputation for it. They hope that the policy does not seek to legislate taste for them. This came up especially in conversations about proposed language for Section B2 and the restriction of framing banners for commercial use. Businesses seek to purchase quality compliant signage to represent their business. Many have bought banners, flags, signs, etc. for this purpose. Some businesses feel that some areas of the code do prohibit them from advertising to high traffic areas entirely. It sounds like it was mentioned by St. Paul Lutheran Church as well tonight. Considering businesses that are not close enough to the main traffic corridors when implementing code changes. There are a number of businesses that have physical barriers to being able to communicate their business to the consumer. We need to work cooperatively with them to get noticed as their success impacts the community as a whole. Location is not always street friendly. Additional feedback was also provided regarding B1, the proposed restriction of banners on fences. Some business leaders feel that the banners that they use are a way of giving an opportunity to inform the community of who they are, the positive things going on with their business, and in the community. The option of hanging a banner on the side of a building in some cases for them was not an option. And there were some that indicated their disappointment that they could lose this form of expression. And then I wanted to share this thought from a longtime resident and local business leader. They say, "In the early days of yore, I just put up my directional signage to our business with no problems. Then, after a few years, my signs began to disappear. At first, I thought it was vandals, but eventually learned, financially painfully, that it was the cities, one by one passing local ordinances trying to regulate and raise money. We don't make much money selling our product, but have many faithful followers who look for our signs to alert them to our open for business. As the years have evolved and town governments and departments have grown, they've grown away from us." I share this because, like so many of you, we want to see Sherwood succeed. I think we're on a good track to move beyond the threat that's offered by that vision. Our Community Affairs Committee was impressed by the involvement in this sign code process. The consideration that went into the proposals was addressed professionally with our mutual goals for effective sign usage and appreciation for keeping our city vibrant and aesthetic. We appreciate things like removing hard-to-enforce exclusion dates, addressing concerns with abusing the permitting process, the amendment tonight addressing the size of A-frame signs, revisiting questions that came up along the way as a great testament to the city's ongoing progress in community involvement. We appreciate that this is a challenging decision and discussion. We thank you for your ongoing support and consideration of our business community as a whole. 8 seconds. Do you have any questions for me?
Thank you very much, Nancy. I appreciate your involvement with city staff and the planning commission through this not easy thing, but with the collective goal of making it easier for businesses in our community to advertise and be successful. And also, obviously, also thank all of your members and your board for your assistance. Any questions? Great.
Thank you. Thank you to Daryl as well for representing the realtors.
You bet. Jim Haynes?
Thank you, Mayor Mays and councilors. My name is Jim Haynes. My address is 22300 Southwest Schmelzer Road, Sherwood, Oregon. I'm here as a member of the Chamber of Commerce, a member of the board, and also a member of the Community Affairs Committee that met recently with Tom and city staff regarding these changes. First of all, I want to compliment the city for the outreach that Tom has given us to get business people involved in this process, which I have found out is not only complicated, but the ins and outs are very arcane, and as Nancy said, the challenge is very great to make this work on a fair and equitable basis. I have 2 points, and one is that I think it's fair that business people realize, and I want to urge city staff to realize that this is complicated, that it's one of those ideal situations where you can be sure that half the people will revile it and half the people will love it, no matter what you do. And I think in fairness, that's simply the nature of this kind of regulation. Over and above that, I just want to stress or underline some of the comments that you've gotten, especially from Nancy Bruton, that signage is incredibly important to small business people. And I do my professional work by and large with small businesses, entrepreneurs, and startups. And the ability of those organizations, be it a commercial, retail, or a service organization, is very dependent on their ability to outreach, to represent themselves, to differentiate themselves, as Nancy said, from their competitors. Small business, medium-sized startups, that's where jobs are created in our community. That's where our young people can often find their first real job, so to speak. So I would encourage city staff to keep as much flexibility going forward, as much flexibility in initial ordinances written, but also going forward to see if there are ways to make this a living document to address new technologies, new techniques that very creative and very well deserving to succeed business people may develop to promote their businesses. So again, I just urge council to keep city staff on point, the direction that they've gone, to look for ways to work with the business community, but keep this an open process to offer our businesses the most opportunity to succeed. Thank you.
Anyone else like to give testimony?
I didn't use my full time. Could I come back? Just a quick comment pursuant to my previous comments. Because we're landlocked, we found that we're kind of in a catch-22 with the county right-of-way in the city's jurisdiction. And in researching this, I was told by the county, you're inside the city. You should be dealing with the city as far as right-of-way usage of signs. And the city says, we don't allow signs in the right-of-way because it's the county's right-of-way. If we could just get the two sides to communicate and maybe work out a protocol, that would be very helpful as well for our situation. Thank you.
Fantastic. Great. Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Thank you, everyone, for giving that testimony and feedback to council. Questions from council to Brad or Tom on anything that was just shared? I've got one. St. Paul. What is the solution? Because they're pretty unique in our community because of the county constructing a big hedge across the entire front of their property. Is it something we want to try, see, depending on council's feedback, to address here with the suggested language or something different, or staff-directed or initiated variance, if that's the direction of council?
We looked at this issue quite exhaustively and I'm not sure that I could have come up with anything better than Mr. Jagow proposed. I guess one of the things that he's correct, he's in a catch-22 because our code specifically says that we don't allow signs within our right-of-way, within the county right-of-way, or for that matter, the state right-of-way. That being said, I called early on after talking to Charles. I called the county to discuss what he would be allowed to do within the right-of-way, and they told us that they don't allow temporary signage at all, which I know is not true because I drive out in the county all the time and I see a lot of temporary signs. They just, in the same sense,
They don't have a code enforcement.
They don't have code enforcement on those issues.
At all.
Is the sign actually located in the right of way?
Yeah.
The sign is actually in the county right-of-way, and I think that even the language that he proposed, I'm not sure, Charles, you'd have to, I think that right-of-way is significantly wider, but what they do have is they have two allowed signs that were put there at the time of construction, and that's currently where they put their banners on two stanchions that are raised up above that permanent signage that's already was permitted through that construction, and according to Charles, it was permitted early on in the city too. Like one of the earlier mayors approved it, allowed it, those two temporary signs when they put in that Ray Rogers improvement. So I don't know. I just it's kind of hard the way the existing code is. I suppose one suggestion that Mr. Crean made is that we might look to get a service provider letter, for lack of a better term, from the county saying that we can permit signage within our right-of-way, that type of signage. But then we would need to go on to discuss whether or not you're going to allow banner signs within the right-of-way throughout the city, because it might seem that you're favoring one group over another if you just choose to do it. I think this is a specific instance where a variance might be warranted. I guess, can you write a variance to a temporary sign ordinance? I'm not entirely positive, so I guess that would be a question for our legal counsel.
Yeah, I guess my general feedback would be there are probably very, very, very few circumstances where a city or county right-of-way extends 50 feet past the edge of the curb or sidewalk that's there. So in writing it this way, there's probably few properties that would meet this criteria. So it seems to address a particular situation that that he's identified, just because of the unique nature of the circumstances that are there. So to that extent, I don't think, you could go and create a variance process, but you might find that you're essentially back to the same point, because anyone that has that much right of way behind the curb is probably going to be essentially in the same position.
And is what the church is suggesting in their language seasonal or limited duration, or just no limits? Okay. Other questions for Tom before I ask my next one?
I would add one thing. The reason that the Planning Commission recommended the 6 instances of the banner signs was in response to Mr. Jagow's earlier testimony before them.
Okay. Councilor Folsom?
So Brad, my question is about the banners. I know, can you explain what we would adopt, how that would impact? So what you're saying is the Les Schwab banner that we saw, that couldn't exist anymore in the proposed language, is that correct?
Correct, and it wasn't permitted at the time. It wasn't allowed at the time. Currently, our code says that your banner sign has to be attached to your building. So that was not a building. That was 2 stakes. We have instances throughout our community where they're attached to fences, walls, and in the case of the Les Schwab, the stakes. But those were not signs that would have been permitted had they come in and applied for them.
And so I think what I heard from the chamber is that that is removing a marketing tool from our businesses, essentially.
Sure. I mean, I don't want to speak for them, but I could draw that same conclusion.
I believe that's what I heard. So not having been privy to some of the discussions that you've had, but Planning Commission felt strongly that this was still the way we should go with this, and maybe Councilor Clark could help.
Right.
What the Planning Commission's recommendation is that they be allowed on buildings, fences, or walls.
That they be allowed.
Yes, ma'am.
On building fences.
Their walls. Building, fences, or walls, not
As
freely
opposed to just a
staked.
building.
Not freely staked or,
Correct.
okay, building, but so fence is okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I just have to say, it's hard to keep track of it all.
It's okay. That's why I'm here, hopefully.
May I make a comment?
Yeah.
Because the limitation before was just building. And so the Planning Commission expanded that to include fences and walls, as opposed to open posts or...
So can you restate that to make sure I'm clear? They would allow a banner on a building, fence, or wall.
Under the Planning Commission
Just
recommendation to you,
recommendation.
yes, ma'am.
As long as the banner does not cover a window.
Right.
Correct.
Correct?
Yeah. Correct. I mean, when you start covering the,
And
right,
it's subject
it's a wall
to
sign.
square footage.
Correct.
So is that a right-of-way in front of Les Schwab?
There is right away in front of
Washington
Schwab.
County.
I'm not entirely
I know, so
positive.
it's a county kind of right-of-way, but it probably doesn't extend 50 feet. I can see the St. Paul's.
They don't.
Church
It does
deal.
not extend
That's-
50 feet.
They're behind it.
They're behind it.
Beyond the property line, or behind the back
checking.
of the curb line.
Councilor Henderson?
So, back to banners. And maybe, I'm just wondering, the Planning Commission is the allowed use, walls, fences, side of the building, because that's essentially what we have now in Sherwood.
Yes, ma'am.
Do we have banners on fences?
We
Currently,
do,
when you did an audit?
there's a couple instances, like
Okay.
the Avamere retirement
okay.
community up there, and then there's one of the, I guess sometimes the Y puts it on their fence
Right.
for daycare, and then also a church that's over across from Stella Olson Park also puts it on the fence. So,
Thank you.
yes, ma'am.
I've got a question with regard to that specific example. Could those locations get around this banner situation simply by firmly attaching a firm, rigid sign in place of their banner?
They could propose a temporary sign, absolutely, and it's on their property, provided it meets the limitations for a temporary sign.
So just because we'd be restricting the banner doesn't necessarily mean they can't still have a similar temporary sign, get the same message out there. They just can't do it in the same method in which they're doing it now.
Correct.
Tom, a lot of stuff. Some new suggestions from staff in this packet from the Planning Commission, and then some additional stuff today. What is staff's desire to have us hammer through to something to try to adopt tonight? Would you like us to act on the different elements of potential changes from the Planning Commission to the staff alternative language and bring it back for final adoption consideration at the next meeting? What is your hope, expectation?
Well, my hope and expectations might be a little bit different. So my hope is that we can get this done tonight for a lot of reasons. It takes 30 days in order to implement this legislation. There's no emergency ordinance in regards to this, so it would be 30 days from the time you adopt this. The next opportunity would be August 7th, I believe. And then we're getting into September. And so I think the sooner we can get it done, the better. If we are to move forward, expectation-wise, there are a number of moving pieces. I'm actually counting 6 different moving pieces that we'd probably have to recommend alternative language tonight in order to do. That's a lot, and might get kind of garbled up as we tried to move forward. So I think what might be best
continue it to a.
I think what might be best would be
special
to
meeting?
continue it. Well, we could continue it to a special meeting if council has availability here in the next couple of weeks. I believe we have a planning commission meeting
Next Tuesday, we have planning
Throwing out
commission.
ideas.
Yeah,
on the
we do.
24th.
It's very busy. But there should be an additional week because I believe there's 5 Tuesdays in July. So potentially we could do it the 5th Tuesday.
The 31st.
Yes. Or we can go to the 7th. And that would allow us to take the feedback that we've had, put this into an organized form so you could adopt changes in an orderly manner. I think at this point that would probably be my preference would be to make sure that we've got your comments and maybe you guys can give us a little bit more feedback on which direction you're going on these 6 different items, and then we can bring those back to you in specific code languages so that there isn't any confusion as to what we adopted and that it's very clear as to what you plan to do. Because one of the things that we said when we started this process is we want it to be clear. And if we get jumbled up or get a few words mixed up, then we've gone backwards, and I don't think that's productive.
Yep.
And we could set it up, like Tom said, organize it such that you have all of our proposed amendments and the language that has been provided by PMAR and by Mr. Jagow, and I'm not sure if specific language was included in Mr. Claus's comments, but we could try and work with Nancy to get some specific language from her that they might be interested in seeing in there, and then give it to you in a format that here's the proposed amendments that you heard this evening, and you can discuss them at that time. But I am probably in line with Tom that I think it would be better to do it under a special session or something that's dedicated. Your meeting is dedicated to that subject for the course of your evening, because it is a very labor-intensive effort.
You bet. Okay. Thank you. I'm just also thumbing through
Keith,
my life. Yes.
I would agree with Tom. I think there are a lot of good ideas and a lot of comments made tonight that we need to incorporate in this. So I appreciate your idea to postpone this so we can have a little bit more time to digest it, because It's a nightmare. And it's not
Sounds great.
simple and easy yet.
Well, in order to get there, if we have another maybe 10 minutes, I would like to kind of go through and get your guys' feedback on these 6 different items so that we can effectively write this legislation. So when we do come back, it can be hopefully fairly orderly to move forward. So, Mary, do you mind if I kind of go through my list here?
That'd be great. If you,
I'll
check them off as you do.
Number 1 was the number of portable signs on residentially zoned properties. Planning Commission recommendation.
4.
Yep. Council, do you like 4 in
Yep.
general?
4.
Yep.
4.
Okay.
Okay.
Number 2, portable sign sizes. There was some recommendation. I think,
Definitions
for me,
is good.
on the definitions for A-frame size and then for other portable signs. Sounds good. 3, IP and large lot residential. Let me make sure that I cover that again because I kind of read you the correct text but didn't give you exactly the right definition. So the text that I was talking about in regards to institutional public would allow more than one sign per business because you have very large lots with one sign. Doesn't make any sense. So that would allow them to be spaced at 50 feet. But then also for residential properties that are very large, over an acre, allowing them to space signs at one sign every 50 feet along their site frontage because there's some very large. The YMCA is a good example. It's
And
residentially
pick a
zoned.
church.
It's one business. They get one sign. So if there's support for that, it would apply both to IP zones as well as residential.
And that'd be non-residential uses allowed within residential zones.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And collective
Mhm.
nods. I see
Yes.
nods.
Yeah.
Great.
We had some recommended changes in the non-conforming section that Brad read out in regards to the Planning Commission making a
Percentages
determination
and-
whether it's major redevelopment as well as whether it's allowable sign area for electronic signs or the actual sign.
Yeah.
Those are good. Okay.
Nodding of heads.
We had the St. Paul Church Amendment recommendation, and we had a little bit of discussion about that. How about we take a look at that and come back with some additional information in regards to that
Yeah.
at that meeting? We'll write something up potentially.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of in our community, it is pretty unique.
Well, the road used to be a lot closer to
Yeah.
the church until they
It's in
realized.
the
So.
county. Except it's in
So
the
general
county.
support for that, but want to hear more, is that kind of?
Yeah.
Yep. I think a bunch of nods.
Well, he can always go ahead and just do it because
Doing it now.
he can always ask for forgiveness later.
Right. There was a recommendation from PMAR in regards to keeping some language in the
Best efforts.
proposed language, making
Yeah.
the best efforts and other things, which we took out of the alternative language. It sounded like they supported the alternative language, but there were some concerns about requiring them to get permission
So-
rather than just making the best effort.
So potentially,
Written testimony.
on the best efforts, just throw one comment, maybe if they, best efforts, leave the business card and a piece of paper that says, if you really don't want it, call me,
Right.
or you can remove it, still call me so I can retrieve it.
Right.
Something like that, just so that, again, more user-friendly but simple.
Okay, so
I don't know, that's just my 10 cents.
So something along the lines of the planning commission recommendation, but maybe work on it a little bit
Yep.
to make that make more sense.
Is it clear to say that you support the language that PMAR put together, or do you want to revisit that, or?
Thoughts?
In general,
I'm
I
in
agree.
support of it. I like
Okay,
it.
nods crossed.
Okay.
And then I didn't have anything else. Brad, did you have anything other else on your list? One thing, there's no need to leave the record open. This is a legislative decision, so there is no need to leave the record open. So that would be something you guys can decide if you want to leave the record open for some reason. And was there anything else that council?
Yeah,
Anybody else
the
remembers?
still the kind of the thing that for folks to chew on is banner signs.
So I just have one statement that I just want to feel like I've had people hear. I really appreciated what I heard from the chamber when they said, we don't want to legislate taste. I liked that, and I think that that's not our job. I also really want to make sure that we're not impeding our businesses to do the very best they can. That is so important to me, because our businesses do so much for our community. So I really want to make sure as we go through this, and that applies to the banners too. So.
Great.
I'd just like to follow that by saying I totally agree with all that. And I've also lived in other states and other communities where somehow they've all got really short signs and they don't have any banners and a lot of stuff that we have here. And I'm not saying that I have a problem with any of that, but it's amazing how the culture adjusts and the whole community looks a little fancier and cleaner because it's the housekeeping seems done. And it's unless you've experienced it and seen it, it's really hard to understand. But I've seen that. I've got faith that we can be successful with these modifications. And anyway, enough said. We've got a lot of work to do to get this thing done.
Any other comments? Any other things you'd like feedback on?
Brad, do you think you have a good grip on the banner sign?
I don't.
I would simply
I
give a
think that
couple-
when we come back to you, I can try and summarize, and I'd like to talk to Nancy and some of the other folks that have discussed banners and just maybe have an opportunity to discuss what their concerns are. Essentially, I think what we tried to do, and we don't legislate taste because we're not legislating content, but I think that what we tried to do is encourage our businesses through this legislation to, as opposed to using banner signs as the single tool to actually make an investment in their business and put some permanent signage as opposed to the banner signage. And I don't want to pick on any one group of people or anything like that, but you can drive through parts of Tigard and you can see where wall sign or banner signs have been converted to wall signs by just getting a 1-inch strip of wood and framing it and then calling it a wall sign. It gets tattered, it gets torn, it's not really maintained, but it's considered a wall sign as opposed to a banner sign. Banner signs, in my mind, should be temporary, but ultimately it's your decision as to whether or not they should be temporary or considered permanent with modifications. So,
Great. Any other comment or feedback? In looking at calendar, I'm inclined to suggest 31st, even though Councilor Folsom is not able to be here. But
I'll be out of town as well on the 31st. The 7th works for me.
The 7th is quite loaded as well. Are Councilor Clark, Councilor Folsom, were you both gone that entire week?
I am, but I get back on the night of the 5th.
Now, potentially one thing we could do, if there's a benefit, is we could have a work session on the 31st to kind of tie up some of these loose ends and then make the text even clearer. But it sounds like you're going to be down at least 2 counselors, maybe 3. We don't know what Councilor Grant is.
That's not a bad idea because we can always catch up by reading it. I know I'll be up in the Olympic National Forest and I know I'll be out of cell phone range, but I can catch up and read on Monday.
So in that case, we'd have a work session on the 31st, and then you'd want to continue this until the 7th. Yeah.
Any other comment on that? Everyone prefer the 7th? I'm saying nodding of heads. Okay. So I will turn to the proper page. I move we continue ordinance 2012-009 to the 7th day of August.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion on the motion. All in favor of the motion to continue ordinance 2012-009 to August 7th, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, council. Thank you, Brad. Thank you, everyone. Sorry we didn't hammer it out, but I think everyone understands the importance of careful consideration. Brad, you need a break?
I need a break.
Council need a break? We'll take
I do.
a 3-minute break while you settle in before we go to the next ordinance.
2 minutes and 30 seconds.
I'll take
Going to hell. Going to hell.
You got a quote?
It's a state.
That's what I meant.
Thanks.
Because of signage?
Great, we're done with our recess, and we will move on to our last public hearing for the evening. And let me just get to the title so I do it properly. It's Ordinance 2012-010, approving a planned amendment, PA, from institutional public to medium-density residential low, MDRL, on tax lot 2S13-0CA-011, and approving a concurrent 26-lot subdivision to be known as Renaissance at Richlick Farms. Sylvia, would you read into the record what we need, please?
The Sherwood City Council will hold a public hearing this evening to hear testimony on ordinance 2012-010, an ordinance approving a plan map amendment, PA, from institutional public IP to medium-density residential low, MRDL, on tax lot 2S130CA0100, and approving a concurrent 26-lot subdivision to be known as Renaissance at Richlick Farms. The public hearing this evening will be conducted as follows: to hear a staff report, questions, if any, by the hearing body, which is the council. The public hearing will then be open to receive testimony from the applicant, persons in favor of the application, persons opposed to the application, and then rebuttal from the applicant. The public hearing will then be closed. No other comments will be heard from the public or the applicant. Questions of the staff, if any, by the city council. Discussion by the council will follow. A decision may be made by the city council at the close of the hearing, or the matter may be continued to a time and date certain in the future. If the matter is continued to a time and date certain in the future, this is the only notice of that date you will receive. If you wish to speak, please fill out the testimony form and submit it to the city recorder. The mayor will recognize those persons wishing to speak, and you should address your questions through the mayor. When you come forward, please state your name and address for the record, as this hearing will be recorded. In deciding whether or not to approve or deny the application, the city council must consider whether the application meets the relevant approval criteria found in the city's land use regulations. Those criteria are identified in the staff report and are available in the room this evening. The written testimony and oral argument must be directed towards those criteria or other criteria the person speaking believes to apply to the decision. Failure to raise an issue with sufficient detail to afford the city council, the applicant, and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issues precludes an appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. Failure of the applicant to raise constitutional detail or other issues relating to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient detail to allow the city council to respond to the issue precludes an action for damage in circuit court. At this time, I would like to ask the members of the council to disclose any ex parte contact, bias, or conflict of interest. Please indicate the nature and extent of the ex parte contact, bias, or conflict of interest, and indicate whether you intend to participate or abstain from the hearing.
We'll just go down the line. Matt? Councilor Langerstein?
I'm not aware of any.
Right.
None.
None?
No contact. None.
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 Great, thank you. And Brad?
Hello.
Good.
Could I have a few minutes? I'm just kidding. Thank you. Brad Kilby, Senior Planner with the City of Sherwood. Tonight before you is the Renaissance at Richlick Farm. This comes to you with a favorable recommendation for both the plan amendment and subdivision from the Planning Commission. The site is located off of Edie Road, highlighted in blue here, and adjacent to the new school site that was built off of for some reason I have Wagon Trail, but it is the next to Bedstraw is to the east, and I cannot think of the name of the street to the west. The proposal is to rezone a portion of the property to medium-density residential low from institutional public. I'll go into that in detail in a moment. And then to divide the 6.57 acre site into 26 single-family lots and 4 tracts Tracks A and B are for water quality and detention and protection of the vegetated corridor in compliance with Clean Water Services. And then tracks C and D are for common open space. Specifically, I had a question from Councilor Henderson about track D. That was open space that would be dedicated to a connection between this site and the school district, providing a pedestrian connection to the school district that was proposed by the applicant. This would be a comprehensive plan amendment, and this was property that was zoned as part of the Area 59 concept plan. And as you can see, a very small portion of the site highlighted here by my laser pointer is zone institutional public. It was thought that at the time that the schools were being considered that they would need that land. Subsequently, they did not need that land, and the schools have been built without the need for having that land. The subdivision, again, they're proposing medium density residential low, which would be consistent with the rest of the zoning applied to the property. Within the concept plan, there is some open space designated to the property, but we neither have a comp plan or a zone that is dedicated to open space. The lot sizes for MDRL, the minimum lot size is 5,000 square feet. The proposed lots range in size from 5,000 square feet up to 12,013 square feet, with the majority of the larger lots being adjacent to existing homes along the east property line. And then the smaller lots are concentrated along the vegetated corridor. The setbacks are 20 to the front, 5 to the side, 20 to the rear, and corner side is a 15-foot. The applicant has submitted a plan that demonstrates compliance with the recent tree canopy requirements that you passed and legislated. I think it's important to note that they've done a fairly good job of maintaining the trees that they can, given the constraints of the site. And I think I'll let the applicant go into what they've had to deal with to get this site prepared for homes. Again, the Plan Commission recommendation was approval with conditions. Staff believes that all public services have been provided to each lot. There's adequate access. The applicant has been conditioned to provide frontage improvements in coordination with the county along Southwest DD Road. They've proposed a pedestrian connection to the school site and reinforced that proposal at the Planning Commission. And they have proposed a street that would eventually connect to Nursery Way if the property to the west is developed in the future. The Planning Commission, I should go back here because I wanted to talk about. So at the Planning Commission, we had some testimony from two of the property owners that were up along Bedstraw, and I think we might hear from them tonight. But specifically, there was concern that the setbacks along Lot 1 and Lot 2 we might allow a lesser setback along those two lots to allow the house and the garage to be moved forward onto the lot so that there are larger backyards. That has not been proposed by the applicant, but the Planning Commission recommended that the City Council, and whatever you determine, indicate your support for such a variance if the applicant so chooses to pursue one at the time. We would still have to, as staff, look at the merits of the proposal based on what our code standards are as they apply to variances. Staff recommends, again, at the time that this came through, we recommended approval, and we would continue that recommendation tonight to you along with the Planning Commission's favorable recommendation.
Fantastic. Questions for Brad before we take testimony? Or hear from the applicant, I mean? Apologies. No? Anything to add, Brad, before we?
No, sir. I'll let the applicant set him up, and then he can come up and speak with you for a few.
Thanks, Brad. Welcome. Don't knock over Brad's piles of stuff.
Is this one mine? Or is this yours? That's mine. Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Mayor Mays, members of the council. My name is Chris Goodell. I'm here with Monty Hurley. We're with AKS Engineering. Our address is 13910 Southwest Galbraith Drive, Suite 100, Sherwood, Oregon, 97140. We're here tonight representing the applicant, Renaissance Development, for this project here before you. It's called Renaissance at Rich Lake Farm. I have a couple things to touch on that to emphasize that maybe Brad didn't get to. The application here before you represents the combined effort of a substantial number of professionals, including civil engineers, land surveyors, professional arborists, natural resource specialists, landscape architects, geotech engineers, traffic engineers, etc. This project here is 26 new single-family homes. It's the lots that they'll be created for. Meets the city density requirements. Satisfies an existing community need, as highlighted in Brad's staff report, which states that there's only 22 lots available in the city currently for new home construction. The homes that will go into this project will support the local schools that are adjacent to the property. New home construction is crucial to attracting and retaining businesses, so we felt that was important to highlight here. The project has large backyards, large lots along the east property line. That's what we have shown here. The average lot size in the subdivision is about 6,800 square feet. The minimum lot size required is 5,000. So the proposal exceeds that requirement by 27%. The area highlighted in green there represents open space. Over an acre of open space is proposed. The open space has a couple different purposes. It's going to provide for tree preservation, natural resource area enhancement, and the vegetated buffer shown in Track D was a result of a professional delineation performed by a natural resource specialist. It's been approved by Clean Water Services. And that's where the boundary is derived from. Track C is open space required by city code. There's been some discussion on trees and landscaping as part of the project. Over 119 existing trees will be preserved. Over 400 new trees will be planted. The amount of tree canopy proposed exceeds the city requirement by at least 16%. Natural resources in Track C will be enhanced to Clean Water Services standards, and that includes planting of nearly 2,000 shrubs and ground cover plants in that area. That will all be designed and inspected by a professional landscape architect and arborist. The project includes safe access, which is consistent with the access location approved in the concept plan. It's designed by a licensed professional engineer, meets city and county site distance requirements as well as access spacing standards, and all this is confirmed in the traffic analysis that was performed by a traffic engineer. It's included in your packet. We've got a project here that includes a safe neighborhood with walkable sidewalks on public streets. We have we're doing street widening on Edie Road, sidewalks. It also includes a dedicated pedestrian pathway to the school site. I've talked with the member of the school district who we coordinated the location for the ped path to provide for students to walk. It's going to connect to an existing pathway there, shown by the white line there in the south. So it's going to go by the tennis courts. It's going to allow for kids in the neighborhood to walk through, connect to the school. I guess in closing, we wanted to thank you here again tonight and ask for your approval. I'm here again with Monty Hurley, who's the professional engineer that's the project manager for the project, and we're here to answer any questions that you'd have.
Great. Thanks. Thanks for putting this together, bringing it in our community. Great to have development returning in all categories in our community, and here's a prime example, residential. Quick question: Track B and C, is that going to be managed by your HOA, or what's your expectation or plan for those two tracks?
Well, it could be a homeowners association, or it could be dedicated to the city.
And you haven't decided what you want to do at this point, or?
No, it could be either. I guess in the application we mentioned it could be both. I guess if it was retained privately, it'd be an homeowners association. And if it wasn't, it'd be a city. So.
Gotcha. Okay. Questions for the applicant?
About the vegetative corridor, you mentioned that it was approved by Clean Water Services. Is there a wetland area in there? You can't really see through the trees. It's obviously very dense vegetation.
There's a drainage way, so there's a 50-foot buffer from the stream bank edge up the hill. So that's the drainage. I don't think there was any wetlands in there, but they still protect the drainage way itself.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions?
Quick question.
Yes.
What is the width of the road going through the subdivision?
28 foot wide, and is it 53 foot or 52 foot right away? 52. Yeah.
Tom, how does that compare to Woodhaven?
Is at 28 foot, the expectation of the city is parking on one side or both sides?
Okay. That answered.
Great. Other questions, Counselor?
I have a question about driveway lengths. I live adjacent to a previously developed area by Renaissance, and some of the driveways are exceptionally short. And I myself have actually run into a hitch on a walk because the driveway is not long enough for a larger vehicle with a hitch. And just wondering if, because you had talked about some additional setbacks, so I'm wondering how that will affect driveway length.
Well, they'll be at least 20 feet deep setback to the garage vehicle entrance, but some of them could be deeper than that.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
the code says 20 feet from the back of the sidewalk to the front of the building, whatever structure, garage door or whatever.
That's my understanding.
Okay.
Still run into a hitch. My van's.
Other questions at this time?
This is adjacent to a neighborhood.
You're not limited to just now to ask questions, so. Okay, well, anything else at this point?
Sure. I guess real quick, I did want to highlight on this plan here. This is our tree canopy plan.
Yep.
As a result of testimony received by the city and the last hearing, we amended some of the proposed landscaping along the eastern edge of Lot 2. We put an additional tree in there. Oh, excuse me, Lot 1, I apologize. Lot 1, an additional tree, and we spaced them out a little differently to provide an additional screening measure to that property owner who had written a letter.
Oh, okay.
I guess in closing, our firms worked with Renaissance on a couple different projects here in the city of Sherwood, and we believe they've all been successful projects and projects that people really like, and we have every reason to believe that will be the case here too.
Yeah, the communities that have been built by Renaissance in Sherwood have certainly been successful and popular. Absolutely. Great. Well, we'll save some of your time for rebuttal.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. We'll take testimony of folks in favor of the application first, and Randy Sebastian.
I'll wait for rebuttal.
Okay. Anyone else in favor? Susan, are you in favor or mixed?
No, I'm not a date.
Okay. Anyone else wanting to testify? All right. Those opposed? Susan, please. Welcome.
Mayor, I just want to clarify, typically on land use, we allow 5 minutes for testimony, so clock set at 4, we can use that as a guide, and that'll tell us when 1 minute's left.
Okay, great. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. My name is Susan Bejarano. I'm a new resident of Sherwood. I live at 21171 Southwest Bed-Straw. I'm from Arizona and newly retired, so you'll have to, pardon the attire, but I'm retired. I did not bring any closed-toed shoes to Oregon or any professional clothing, so I'm just really enjoying the weather here, and I want to tell you what a beautiful city and town that you have here.
We're pleased that you chose Sherwood to move to.
Thank you. And I did pick Sherwood. I was looking at Hillsborough, Beaverton area, Wilsonville, but Sherwood really reminded me of why I love Oregon. I've been an educator for 33 years, and I vacationed here in the Oregon-Portland area for at least maybe the last 5 to 6 years and really love the area. Oregon, to me, represents green, greenery, trees, recycling, the culture of the people, and Sherwood upholds all of those values. And I appreciate this council, Mayor Mays, because I know that servant leadership is not easy. And I know that 50% of your constituents are going to be happy with your decisions and others may not be. And I totally understand that. The original voter, the plan that was presented to the voters, my understanding and speaking with my Bed-Straw neighbors, was entirely different on what they voted on. They were told that there was a school to be built, that the plan had less units on it, and the original draft or drawing that the builder presented to them had lesser units. And so now that they are proposing the 26 units, it differs from what they originally voted on. Also, on tracks C and B, I believe that those areas are not as densely wooded. I'm not sure the terminology that you use here, being a new resident, but I love the trees behind my property. They're huge, tall, at least 100-year-old pine, spruce. I was told there's a difference with firs, spruce, and pines. And so to cut those trees down to me really is a shame. I understand that Progress, and this is a very reputable builder. I have no issue with them. And it's a good thing for the community to have builders come in. But builders also need to accommodate the residents that are there and the residents that are going to buy and purchase their homes. And I would believe that if I were, and I just bought my property that backs up to this beautifully wooded area. My neighbor also is backing up to the same area. And that is the area that is going to be cleared for the housing. It's not tracks C or B that has already been cleared, but I would propose that a change in the number of units to be built on the property and maybe different areas, and to leave as many of those trees as possible. I don't know if you've passed or driven by Edie Road and looked at this wooded area. It is so beautiful. I mean, it looks like picturesque. It looks like a dream come true to me, being able to retire here. And so I believe with the extra units to be built, it's going to create an overcrowded type situation. The school, from my understanding, is at capacity, and with the additional children, it's going to be way over capacity. I come from an area of Arizona. We have scorpions out there, you know. We have bobcats coming in. Within the short time that I've been there, I walk around the exact wooded area that Renaissance is going to build on. I've seen a doe walk through there. I've seen, I think it was colored red, so I assume it's a red-tailed hawk. I don't know if you have those here. It was either a chipmunk or a squirrel, I don't know, but it was climbing the trees. And I stopped to enjoy and just take in the essence of nature, of those trees and the animals that inhabit that area. And my two dogs also ran into 3 baby skunks. And so, you know, that to me, I mean, even unwelcome environments like that, to me, really should be treasured because they were here first. And I don't think that these same animals are going to be there when these woods are cleared. I don't think that that doe will be wandering around, you know, looking for the farmer's garden area. And so I would appeal to this council, Mayor Mays, to at least to consider to have the builder go back to their original draft, to their original plan on the details of this housing unit, because it doesn't look the same from what I was presented. There was a walkway there. There was a green buffer behind our properties. And so I would appeal to this council to consider that. I would appeal to the builder to go back to their original plan. And I know the legalities of it. I know that lawyers have sewn this up very tightly where they are completely within the realm to propose the changes. But I would appeal to them also to go back and to create a beautiful living, working environment that the residents that are currently there and the new residents to move in are going to enjoy. It's not about how many houses you can get into a property. It's creating the ambience and the culture and the climate and the beauty of Sherwood to keep it that way so that when we drive up Edie Road or we drive down Bed-Straw, we're going to look up and we're going to be able to see as many of those trees still standing there as possible. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Anyone else like to give testimony? Randy, do you want to go next, or your staff? Rebuttal? Yeah. Okay, I think
guess I could go next.
we're ready for rebuttal. There's nobody else wanting to give testimony, so however you two want to coordinate.
So as a quick time check, they use 6 minutes of their time. They roughly have 30 minutes, so they still have 24 minutes.
24 minutes?
Yes.
Okay. That's the last of them.
Gotcha.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Just a couple quick comments. I think the plan that was being referred to there was the Area 59 concept plan.
Okay.
When we went to, and I don't think that specified, other than maybe in the text, how many units, but I don't think there was a site plan that showed number of units and number of lots or anything like that. When we had our neighborhood meeting, we actually had one more lot than we have now. We had 27, and I think it was 27, yeah, right. And we reduced it to 26 because we felt it was overcrowded at that point. The MDRL zoning allows up to 35, and we're at 26, so we thought we were way under the maximum. And with respect to trees, it was another consideration with reducing that lot. An area that lot was proposed for would have required a lot of tree removal, and so we decided that was one reason why that was taken out of the project. So in addition, with respect to the new tree canopy code, we exceed that by a long shot. With respect to the visual aspects of the project traveling along Edie Road, you can see by that plan right there, there's going to be a substantial green corridor there up against Edie, and a visual corridor per city code will be provided the entire length. So we believe it's going to meet the city requirements, and it's going to look real nice.
Great.
Mayor, okay, there we go. Mayor, City Council, Randy Sebastian, 16771 Boones Ferry Road, Lake Oswego, Renaissance Homes. Chris stole my fire. Everything I was going to say, he said.
I'm sorry.
You're so good. Okay, well, one thing, actually I started building in Sherwood before there was even a building department. We had to get our building inspector out of Tualatin, so that's how long I've been building houses here. But since 2000, we've done 6 neighborhoods, 6 communities, and over 200 homes, and I'm proud of all of them. We've done a really good job, and we're going to do a great job here as well. The original, as Chris said, the original concept plan way back when showed school on it and in an open space designation. That, again, was a concept plan. We then hired AKS to go through zone change, which we're doing, and then also we hired a biologist, Mirth Walker, to delineate all the stream corridor, which is what we're working with now. One thing it's always worth mentioning. I understand what Susan's saying. She's from Arizona, and it's beautiful here, and this is why we all live here. I have relatives in Arizona, and I don't know why they live there, but they do. So.
Yeah, I'm from Arizona.
Yeah, I like you anyway.
But I moved here.
So, one thing that when we get to these situations that people forget about is the family that's owned the property forever. And not ever, but a long time. And Leonard Richlick farmed the property, obviously took care of it, and he passed away a little while ago. And so now the property needs to go to the next use. And families pay property taxes, city taxes, and he was a good steward of the property. And so that's something that when people talk about devaluing the property, taking lots away, or saving this or saving that, as long as we meet code, which we do, or exceed, which we are, and we're doing, we're going to do a good job here. We've been working on this site for well over a year to get to this stage, so this isn't something that was just thrown together, and I think that needs to be mentioned too. And AKS has done every development that we've done in Sherwood. They just finished one for us in Lake Oswego, and they do an exceptional job, as you guys know. So that's what I got.
Perfect. Questions for the applicant or Randy?
I would like to address our driveways in the city of Sherwood are 20 feet long in many cases, they're longer on cul-de-sacs. They're pie-shaped lots. You will push the house back, so they're 20 feet long. And I happen to know this because we, for the homes that we build, we have lengths for different rigs, and one of the longest trucks out there is a Suburban. They're 16 feet 8 inches long. So put a hitch on it, you're nearly 18 feet, right? And so they just need to push that car right into the to the front.
Well, if people actually parked in their garages in Sherwood, that wouldn't be a problem.
There you go.
But that's another issue.
We do have some 3-car garages here, which helps. That way, 3 cars can be in the driveway, not inside. Right?
Great. I see no other questions or anything else. Thank you very much. Assuming you get support, great. If it gets the support, it'll be a fantastic project in our community. And I am happy to see the dedicated path for access to the school site. I know a whole lot of kids that will take that, assuming this is approved, will take that shortcut instead of going all the way down to Copper Terrace. Copper Terrace. To loop around that way, they'll dive right through there and love it.
What's nice about it too is it's adjacent to the tennis courts. I believe it's not in a hall. A lot of times we'll put them between lots. We're forced to and it was good the staff worked with our engineers to get that away from the end of the cul-de-sac and to where it's more exposed. On the
high visibility.
Yeah.
Safety.
Yeah, better. Yeah.
Fantastic. Seeing nothing else, we'll close the public hearing and staff rebuttal. Okay. You want to do it from there?
Didn't realize it worked. Again, Brad Kilby, senior planner. Just 2 comments. Susan, I'm sorry, I don't know your last name, but we did contact the school district. They were notified. According to them, they're not at capacity, so I don't think that's an issue for the subdivision. The other one is the tree code that you passed has been appealed to LUBA. That's the tree canopy requirements, and they are rightfully able to apply under those standards. But if that is overturned at LUBA for any reason, then they would need to be conditioned to comply with the standard that ultimately comes out of that decision. And so we did not write a condition that would have done that. So I would recommend that as part of your decision, if you approve this, that we would somehow need to craft a condition of approval, and I can work with Chris on the language of that.
Okay. Anything else, Brad?
No, sir.
Great. So we'll close the public hearing. Questions of council for staff? Any questions, councilors? Thoughts?
I have one.
Counselor?
In one of the letters from neighborhood residents, one of them said they were concerned about line of sight coming out of, I'm sorry.
Coming out of the private drive onto Southwest.
Well, yeah, the combination of bed straw being right there and nursery.
So site distance?
Right. So I would imagine that concern has to do because of the dip when they come down, when they're going west.
Correct.
On Edie.
Correct. I would say that the applicant, because if you go out to the site, there's a steep, when you turn onto the site, you have to go up pretty steeply. So they will be grading that down, which will improve the site distance. And then as part of the final approval, they have to certify that they continue to meet site distance.
So that's site distance when they're facing north?
Yes, if
And
north is
exiting.
up on this, correct.
Okay.
And I should also mention that with Edie Road being widened, it'll remove some vegetation that might be hindering site distance to,
Right. Like on lot 1, potentially?
Correct. I don't think that site distance is going to be an issue because of the amount of grading that they're going to have to do to get into the site.
Quick question.
Thank you.
Other questions? Comments?
Comments. I feel like, having them come into our city to create a nice subdivision like this is something that we need to embrace. It brings more families into our community, and that's what we're about, is a family community. So I think they produce a great product, and I welcome them.
Excellent. Any other? Yes, Councilor?
I agree with Councilor Butterfield. I feel that I'm the liaison to the Planning Commission, and so I sat in on all of the presentations, and I feel that they are making the subdivision far less units than would be allowed under the code. They're following the code. As much as I love green space, private property is not green space, it's private property. And I love trees, fifth generation Oregonian, love my trees. But our community, I think, will benefit from this development, and I think that we should support developments that follow our code and increase the livability of Sherwood.
Great. Anybody else? Councilor?
I just want to echo that I appreciate the fact that the codes were not the bar, they rose above the bar in a lot of areas. I understand as neighbors that it's hard to lose. Reading the letters, I understand what the neighbors are saying and I hear them, but I appreciate Councilor Clark's point immensely that private property is private property. And in this situation, I think that those homes will be quite valuable to that area, because it is my understanding that the schools, having been in them recently, really aren't close to capacity, and this would provide a great opportunity for children to be within walking distance of schools for 8 years or 9 years. And it just seems like a really opportune area. I actually happen to be in a neighborhood that has several Renaissance homes on the edge of it, and I appreciate going through and seeing the care they took with how they look. So.
Great. I agree. Fantastic builder, done great work in our community. A builder could have come in and since they went to the work of a text amendment, they could have changed to a higher density zoning and lobbied for support, and they didn't do that. And so it's a credit to the market that they're pursuing, and it's going to be a big draw. Very popular little neighborhood, I believe.
Any amenities?
Very popular, and I think it will be difficult initially for the neighbors, but they'll be happy in the long run with this as a neighbor versus other options that they could have had. Staff, have we given you enough time to draft a condition yet?
Just about. We have to fill in a couple of numbers. This references the ordinance that's on appeal, and we have to figure out what ordinance number that was.
Okay. So we'll continue to ramble.
No, I can tell you, as soon as we get these blanks filled in, we should be able to adopt a proposed condition of approval that says, City of Sherwood Ordinance 2012- blank, amended Sherwood Municipal Code 16142 and he's trying to find exactly what it is, regarding tree canopy coverage, i.e. the 30% standard. This application applied Sherwood Municipal Code 142-.
Okay, well, we'll let you just fill in the blanks.
As amended, okay.
And
we're almost there.
Everyone talk amongst yourselves.
Okay.
I've got a question for Tom in the little leeway. From staff's perspective, is staff advocating that the track B and C be deeded to the community or be maintained by the homeowner association? It says in the staff report homeowners, but I just want to reaffirm something to talk about for 5 minutes.
It's on page 186.
Thank you.
186.
Do we want it? Is the question.
Well, it's It's what is referenced in the code.
So homeowner
Kind of
association is best.
Find B and C here real quick, so.
If the city's willing, we'd like to give the land to the city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's better. For us.
Yeah, does the city want to maintain it? Is the expense item of note.
It's 12,000 feet, square feet, correct?
And none of it's part of a potential trail corridor, unlike other tracks that we've taken ownership in the past.
Well, and it doesn't have great access.
It's not really
to the
usable.
actual
Yeah,
homes,
right.
So it wouldn't necessarily be a great park, but it's 12,000 square feet, which is the plaza size.
Oh, for track C, what you're referring to.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it is an acre.
Yeah.
All of it.
Yeah. Yeah, but
Free acre, go on.
so
I believe the homeowners association is correct.
Okay, and that's what's recommended in the staff report. Correct.
Is it homeowners association?
It's not really spoken to in the staff report because we don't, it's at the applicant's suggestion, and I believe it was the homeowners association would maintain it.
Okay.
And we would support that.
Okay. Chris, are you ready for some suggested language now?
Yes, we need a condition of approval that reads something very close to the following. City of Sherwood Ordinance 2012-03 amended Sherwood Municipal Code 16.142.050 regarding tree canopy coverage. This application applied 16.142.070 as amended by Ordinance 2012-003. The ordinance is on appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals. If Ordinance 2012-003 is reversed or remanded, the applicant shall comply with the tree canopy coverage requirements in effect prior to the adoption of Ordinance 2012-003.
That is my motion to amend the proposed ordinance. To add that condition.
Second.
Is that sufficient? There's discussion continuing. So I withdraw my motion for the moment.
Well, free advertising.
And my apologies to everyone, we are past our
I'm sorry,
9:30 cutoff limit.
The reason is there's a statute that says when a city amends its land use regulations, an applicant can proceed under those new regulations, but you do so at your own risk. And if the regulation gets overturned on appeal, you have to tear out the improvements or anything that got approved under the new standard. Well, your new standard requires much less mitigation than I think that's right, than the old standard. So if that new standard isn't upheld on appeal and gets reversed or remanded by LUBA, it's not in effect anymore, and the city can't apply it. They'll have to proceed under the old standard in 16.142.070.
Right, so what you read is.
Does that, would require that.
So that is my motion to add that condition to the staff report recommendation. Safe
Yes.
motion?
Yeah.
Is there a second on my motion?
Several. I second.
Councilor Butterfield seconds the motion. So, discussion on the motion. All in favor of amending
2012-10.
as stated by Chris? If anyone wants to read it back, we can, but I don't think we do.
No.
Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. It is, we have an amended thing. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ordinance 2012-010. Discussion on the amended ordinance. Action on the amended ordinance. Do I have a motion to read, caption, and adopt?
I'll move we recaption and adopt ordinance 2012-010.
Excellent. Is there a second?
Second.
Got a stereo second. Sylvia.
Sure.
Ordinance 2012-010, an ordinance approving a plan map amendment, PA, from institutional public IP to medium-density residential low, MRDL, on tax lot 2S130CA 0100 and approving the concurrent 26-lot subdivision to be known as Renaissance at Ridgely Farms. Counselor Clark?
Aye.
Counselor Langer?
Aye.
Counselor Butterfield?
Aye.
Counselor Folsom?
Aye.
Counselor Henderson?
Aye.
Council President Grant is absent. Mayor Mays?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Thank you, council. Thank you, applicant. City manager and staff reports.
Just real quickly, Mayor, City Manager Joe Gall is asked to say sorry that he couldn't be here. He had a vacation long planned, and so he is doing that with his family, but he will be here for the next meeting. Just real quickly, I wanted to mention that since the last meeting, City Manager did approve an OLCCC permit for Music on the Green for the Historical Society. They traditionally have sold wine at the Music on the Green, and so as our usual course, just letting council be aware of that fact. We'll mention that at the first event of the season, we saw a lot of alcohol that was not provided by the Historical Society that was brought into the park. And Chief Jeff Groth is looking at that. We will have officers at each of the events to continue to monitor it, but there may be some necessity to come back with some additional code language changes because currently that type of activity is allowed, is my understanding. So
you're talking about patrons coming to Music on the Green, bringing in alcohol with them?
Correct.
Even though the sign on the bridge says no alcohol allowed past this point. That's what you're talking about, right? I'm just trying to clarify.
Yeah, go ahead.
That's correct, but the problem we have is there's conflicting code language. There's also language that says, in essence, forgive the slang, but BYOB is allowable. And so we need to clean that up, and we need to set direction that's going to help guide us moving forward. So we'll take we've already discussed this with several folks in staff, but we'll take the lead and we'll get something together probably early this fall to get that cleaned up and move forward with that. So
Does this include the park area up above?
yeah, the language really addresses all parks and public places. So it really establishes a conflict because, as Councilor Henderson said, there's a section in the code that is reflected in the signs that says no alcohol in parks and public places. There's another section that says you can't have it unless you bring it for your own use, and you can't sell it without a permit. So it's kind of a convoluted mess. So,
Which way are we going?
Well, I think that's going to be up to the city manager Joe
I haven't
Gall
said.
and the chief to come to some sort of resolution on that. I guess my encouragement to the public that might be watching this is, the more responsible you are, probably the less quickly we'll have to deal with that. But
Yes.
that will be a decision that the city manager will have to make in conjunction with conversations with you as how quickly and what exactly direction we're going to go in regards to that. And then lastly, I'll just quickly say, along with OLCC permits, there were a number that were approved for the Robin Hood Festival, mostly for wine inside of the approved area as by the special event permit. So that's it.
No other reports? No other reports? You're totally wanting to go. We were all late. So a quick reminder, Robin Hood Festival this weekend, it's going to be a blast. Don't miss the inaugural first Friday evening after nighting of
The Royal Academy.
the Royal Academy.
The Royal Academy.
And then next week, Wizard of Oz. You cannot miss Wizard of Oz unless you're out of town all week like I am. So I'll have to hear the tales from folks that are able to attend. But it'll be a lot of fun. Anything else from council? Hearing none, we're adjourned.